Welcome, one and all, to I Am Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter, and this week we have a double header. Two fantastic guests. We're going to start off with Michael J. Murphy, expert in geoengineering, and in the second hour we have Roger Landry, creator of the Liberty Beacon movement. Michael, are you with us now?
I am, Brian, and thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on. You're one of the busiest activists on the planet. I have to ask you, where do you get this incredible energy you have to try to right the wrongs of geoengineering?
Geez, at the end of a day like today, I say what energy would be my answer. But I think some days I have a lot of energy, other days I don't. It really depends on where we're at. We're currently in production of Unconventional Gray, which is a very exciting film. It's going to bring this issue into the next level. So we have been, I just got back from Turkey, where I spoke and filmed. We've been editing, we've been traveling, and just doing a whole lot. So there's a whole lot going on, and following, of course, this the COP21 in the climate change agenda as a whole, very closely working with the Coalition Against Geoengineering in terms of redeveloping that website. So there's quite a bit, as you are aware, going on. So when you say, where do you get this energy? Sometimes, again, I say, what energy? But I think it just comes from a calling and a passion, recognizing how critical the time that we're in is, and just fulfilling that call and moving forward. So I'm honored, and I feel like this is definitely a calling from God. So I'm honored to be called and trusted to the position that He's put me in, and we just do the best that we can.
Awesome. Yes, feel the calling. I feel the same calling. Yes, Michael. So what? A lot of people are becoming more and more informed because of people like you on the issue of geoengineering. What could the listener do? What's the best way to find you on the internet, or what would be the best place to go to keep track of what you're doing?
Right now, it's social media. So Facebook, we have various Facebook pages, but you can find me with my name, Michael, middle initial letter J, and then Murphy. Or I typically post on the What in the World Are They Spraying Facebook page. And I also have Twitter. So if you give me 1 second, I'll pull up my Twitter account. We just started developing that. But Twitter is a good way to get information out. Also, coalitionagainstgeoengineering.org. So my Twitter page is Michael Murphy at AWCSOG. And I'm not sure what that stands for, but again, it's AWCSOG. Somebody on our team, I think, put that together, so I'm not sure. I'll figure it out, though.
Okay. Well, that's not hard to remember. It's pretty clear. Okay, no, Twitter is a great thing. I'm actually not that big. I'm not really into Twitter, but no, it is very popular, so I'm glad you're on Twitter. People love doing Twitter. Mm-hmm. So you've made two other movies. What in the World Are They Spraying, and Why in the World Are They Spraying? Those are the two movies I watched about 4 years ago that introduced me to the whole topic of geoengineering. It certainly got me on board. So thanks a lot for making those two great movies.
Yeah, thanks. They were great films. They really provided. They were the first films that provided documentation to the level that I think was needed to get this out to millions of people. So I was honored and blessed to be a part of those, and I learned a whole lot. So I think they were good foundational films, and I think they were very effective in terms of creating or being part of creating a movement. You know, they were a lot of base education for a lot of activists. So very good films. Now I think we're in a time, as hopefully we'll discuss tonight, where action is really critical. So I think the time for education is nearing the end. Of course, we should continue to educate people. That's a vital part of our work, but that can't be all that we do. We have to go into a mode where we start taking action. So we have to look at what the most effective way that is. Unconventional Gray, and you can find out more info at unconventionalgray.com. It's a call to action film. So we have a very specific game plan in terms of what information we're presenting, what evidence we're presenting, and then specifically what specific actions we're going to take, and it's based on a couple of new principles, some things that we had been alerted to in terms of the movement, legal objectives, some objectives with the climate change agenda. So we're looking at those areas and quickly looking for the most effective way to get these plans stopped. I firmly believe that this film, not that the movement needed another film. We woke up millions of people. We have the masses. We have more than enough people to get this stopped. People in regions all around the world are aware of this. So after I started getting involved with the film, I honestly, God, this was probably in maybe March or April, I took a step back and I said, does the movement need another film? There were some other films that came out this year. There are a couple others in production, and they're all pretty good. You know, they provide good, solid evidence. And I said, do I really need to make another film? And I said, I don't think so. But what the movement needs is action. It doesn't only need education, it needs action. So I looked at the dynamics and started talking with our team, and we came up with a game plan based on what was going on. But a big part of this film, in a part that we largely ignored, it's geoengineering in relation to the climate change agenda. And it's critical in understanding the two and how they interrelate in terms of how we move forward in getting geoengineering stopped. And I can elaborate if you want to take the interview in that direction, wherever you want to go, Brian.
Well, yeah, I know that you are very, you kept a very close watch on what's going on at the COP21 conference, and I guess that you didn't get to the COP21 conference. Is that true?
I don't think any activists did, other than the ones that got arrested outside. But no, we didn't. I was there, though, however, in Paris at Our Common Future. Some people like to call it Our Communist Future because of the plans and objectives that they outlined in that meeting. But yeah, we're there for the summer, and what they're trying to do and what the goals and objectives are is to create a global governance. And what this will do, once this matures, it was a legally binding agreement, and I really want to talk about that closely because I think there's a lot of confusion in the movement in terms of what's happening. But the goals and objectives of COP21, and it's important to say other climate agreements, because this is a complete climate agenda, is to create world government. And what that will do, if we allow this to happen, it will circumvent constitutions, national laws around the world. It will allow an unelected body, the IPCC, the United Nations, to literally micromanage our lives, creating a carbon dictatorship. And what it will do...
Michael, what does the IPCC stand for?
International Panel on Climate Change.
Okay.
So they're the United Nations branch that essentially is moving forward with various climate change related initiatives. So the key part of this is this global governance, because it's not respective of national laws, of the Constitution here in the United States and in other areas. It will, if we allow this to happen, create the framework to legalize geoengineering. And what this does, because it takes laws out of our various jurisdictions, and again, allows essentially a new government to dictate, to mandate, to create laws, to tax us. And when that happens, they will be able to mandate or dictate. And right now, what they're going for, I guarantee you, although they're talking very little about specifically legalizing geoengineering in these meetings, it's critical to understand this framework, because it's a new government that is run by unelected officials. It's not like we elect somebody and then they represent us. This is a new government, irrespective to the electoral process. And that creates what many are calling a carbon dictatorship. And again, it's very important to understand that will create the framework to legalize our geoengineering without our input, without the input of our legislators. And the issue of geoengineering is very critical because the IPCC, they have various climate models. And all of these models are essentially sourcing CO2 as being the cause of global warming. And we're very clear in our stance about that. And there's a lot of argument about whether the planet is warming or cooling. I don't get into that. And the reason is this: because geoengineering programs have been designed to manipulate our weather, and they're designed to change the temperature of the planet. And because they've been ongoing for over 40, 50, maybe even 60 years, and they're not in climate models, it makes those climate models flawed and fraudulent. You cannot determine what the planet's doing until you stop the geoengineering programs. Once you do, once our air is clean from these aerosols, then we'll be able to make an accurate decision whether the planet is warming or cooling. But you can't move forward with mandates, with laws, with taxes, with removing people's freedoms, and all of these dictatorial mandates on people based on flawed models. So here's our objective in an unconventional shade of gray, which we're changing, I think, the name to unconventional gray. We're providing the basic information that's needed, and we have climate scientists talking about the models being flawed and fraudulent, especially because they're missing the big elephant in the room, again, geoengineering. How can you say, for example, and we're speaking for those who weren't privy to our private conversation of how warm it was in Canada. And many are saying, oh my God, it's attributed to global warming. Well, we have clear evidence that they're manipulating the jet stream with aerosols and HARP and other related technologies. So they can push warm air into certain regions, which I'd like to get into, and cool certain regions, warm other regions. How do you get a temperature reading when they're doing that? And the answer is very clear, you can't. You can get a temperature reading, but it's not going to be accurate. And that's the premise of our film. So what we're doing, we started our aerosol collection project where we're taking airplanes into the sky, we're testing the trails, we're testing the aerosols. And once we get the test back, which we expect to get positive test results back, proving that geoengineering programs have been deployed, then we can go ahead with our attorneys and go into the courtroom. And this is going to be our objective, is to get these projects in regions around the world and get this evidence into courts around the world. And our objectives in this project is to get geoengineering stopped, at least to get the climate talks in the legislation and various mandates immediately rescinded until geoengineering is stopped. And once our air is clean and clear and it's not testing for aerosols, then we can have debate or we can have discussion about what the climate's doing. But again, going in and getting various legal actions done is the only way that we're going to stop this. And again, if we allow this to happen, if we do not take this into court immediately, they will create the framework to legalize geoengineering, and it's not going to be representative of us. What they will say is, we're going to do this. The reason it's important right now, today, we have the ability to take legal and legislative action. We have a court system, not that all court systems represent us, but we do have the ability to do that. Once this government is fully matured, which they certainly intend to do, and I want to get into detail about this, then that will remove our ability to take the legal and legislative action. So our door, the door and the window of opportunity is closing, but we have it today, and it's critical that we get these aerosol tests, get these into court, and again, get various court actions to stop the climate change agenda. And what this does, it puts literally a stick in the spoke of the big machine, and it stops them. And the interesting thing about this issue is we've had these people on both sides arguing whether the planet's warming or cooling. What our plan does is it literally forces those who are supportive of the climate change agenda to be supportive of stopping geoengineering. So we collectively come together, we have a common goal to stop geoengineering, and then, wow, global warming could be solved, but if not, we can also always come back to the table and see what's going on.
Michael, how can climate scientists ignore the obvious physical signs of all these streaks and ever expanding streaks in the sky? I mean, it's beyond my comprehension how they can ignore this sort of evidence.
It's you know what, it's beyond that. For many of us, it was just about looking up in the sky, noticing the global dimming in the big trails. Then we got into the rain tests that show, exactly the primary ingredients named in various geoengineering models, and also, several geoengineering patents designed to spray the stuff in our sky. So we're finding the fallout from these programs that, again, match exactly. So we're finding this all over the world. And yes, it has been ignored. And if you look at the way we investigated what you're discussing, how can professionals, how can universities ignore this? And their approach, what they're looking at, their grants, their funding comes from certain sources. And there has not been any studies other than independent studies, which we now have peer-reviewed papers, but there have been no studies that have been funded to look for evidence of geoengineering programs. And because of that, because this is not something that the system, that the mainstream is dictating and mandating, as a matter of fact, they're hiding these things. It's not something that's looked at or even of interest to many of the universities. I mean, how many university officials would risk their career to go and do something that's not, go against the grain of the university, especially when it's not involving a grant or anything else? I mean, there's a big chance that they'll be fired, that they'll be removed, and as a matter of fact, that has happened on many occasions. So they have a very narrow guidelines in terms of what they can study, what they can investigate, and we're finding that this issue has been ignored largely by the mainstream, and that includes the universities.
So, Mike, you said you have the test, accurate test from taking rain samples and analyzing them. How will getting up there in the atmosphere and taking samples directly behind a plane that's spraying, how will that be a better evidence?
Right now, those of us who are aware of geoengineering, we're certain because we've been investigating this. We have hundreds of rain tests. Again, they match exactly. However, in a court of law, it's different because there are various, a number of different variables, especially of contamination. So being that aluminum, yes, it's in our sky, it correlates with trails. Yes, we are certain that that is the fallout from geoengineering programs. And it wasn't there 10 years ago. That doesn't fly in court. You need absolute proof of deliberate spraying of geoengineering programs. Going up into the trail, testing, there's no room for debate in terms of what is in that trail and what is in the rain. And especially for the source. And that's key, is defining what the source is. And again, that will give us conclusive proof that geoengineering programs are ongoing in major regions around the world. And because of that, it's intimately, again, related to the climate change agenda. And because, again, geoengineering changes the temperature of our planet, they are designed to manipulate our weather, and because they're ongoing, you cannot determine whether the planet's warming or cooling. It's only when these programs are stopped. And that's conclusive. That is not debatable. And that's what we're going to bring into court. And that is how we are going to stop geoengineering for good. Because, again, we have powerful interests. And this is the climate change agenda. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry, potentially, with cap and trade, with various taxations. This is big. It's the biggest planned transfer of both monetary and political power in the history of the planet. And if these people are so certain that global warming is happening, they will be supportive of stopping geoengineering. Once it's stopped, then we can determine. So it's really a plan of unity, and that's what needs to happen. We have a global problem, and we have a global, right now, concern for climate change. Very few people, less than 8% of the population, are aware that geoengineering programs are creating the changes in our climate. And it's our duty to educate them and, again, move forward with these initiatives, bringing this into court. It's the only thing that will solve this problem, and it's the most effective. And I've only been certain of a few things in my life, and I'm very certain that this is the way to stop it. And we're moving forward. And I'm very excited about it. It's really an incredible opportunity to come together as humanity on both sides of the global warming issue. We can all support this initiative, and that's why it's critical. There's no debate in court. You know, for years, we've had people, there are some powerful interests on both sides of the climate change agenda. Some that argue that the planet's warming. Of course, that's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Others that argue that the planet is cooling. And both sides have come into courtrooms. They've stated their case, and they have documented, peer-reviewed paper. There is no consensus in the science community. We have both sides of the issue that have credible information, but there's so much documentation and so much contradiction. The one thing that's not debatable, again, is this: geoengineering changes our climate. You cannot determine what the planet's doing till you stop it.
Well, what about the toxicity of this stuff? I mean, that's my biggest concern.
And it should be. The fallout, what is in the air, it comes down. What's sprayed into the sky, yes, it comes down into the air that we breathe. So we've been finding thousands of times the normal amounts of aluminum, barium, what appears now to be, in terms of some programs, coal fly ash that contains, obviously, aluminum, barium, strontium, arsenic, lead, all of these toxic things. So every breath that we're taking, we're breathing this in. And it's getting into our blood, and many people have tested positive for thousands of times the normal amounts of the primary ingredients of geoengineering programs. So these things are impacting us. Aluminum is related to a number of neurological illnesses, including ADD, asthma, respiratory mortality, went from number 6 down to number 3. And then we're looking at Alzheimer's, definitely related to aluminum. That's gone through the roof really since these programs, we feel, have gone into full-scale deployment. That was probably in the mid to late 90s. So we're seeing all of these, and then barium, it decreases our immune system, creates high blood pressure, a lot of high blood pressure and barium-related illnesses literally going through the roof. So yeah, this is definitely leading to the poor health of people, which in turn leads to death. So we're seeing mortality rates going up. We're seeing all kinds of illnesses. And then our forests, the ecosystems, our plants, our trees, aluminum, the primary ingredients in geoengineering programs, it does a couple of things. It changes the pH of our soil. So in certain areas, such as Northern California, naturally should have a very acidic soil. It's gone alkaline. And we're not talking about small changes. We're not talking about twice as alkaline. In some cases, in many cases, 10 times the alkalinity. And what happens just on a pH basis, if a tree, which requires an acidic soil to grow, if that alkaline changes, it's going to really stress the tree and perhaps create death in it. But another thing, the aluminum that they're spraying, aluminum is so toxic. And a lot of trees will actually have root systems that will shut down when bioavailable aluminum is introduced to it. As a result, the tree dies a very slow death. What we're seeing, and I've traveled quite a few places since I started my work in this area, all around, even where I live in Maui in the wintertime, the rainforest is collapsing. Even in very wet winter months, the rainforest is collapsing. In Chicago, where I spent the summer, it's been a very wet couple of years. About a third, maybe 20%, I would say would be more accurate, of the trees in the forest are dying. And that, without question, is related to the aluminum, to the pH changes, and other forms of what's called abiotic stress, which is not debatable. We certainly have had these issues. So geoengineering, without question, these are the most destructive programs that we have had since the inception of really our corporate world. And they're so destructive to all life on the planet. And they are destroying everything, including our ozone layer. And we've had many issues associated with that. We could talk all night, I think, about the human health and the ecological implications of these programs. So it's very, very concerning in terms of the damage that they're doing. Why are they doing this? As geoengineering, David Keith said, he said, geoengineering gives man godlike power. This is about money and power. And geoengineering gives the type of leverage in terms of harnessing the control of our weather, in terms of how that benefits certain corporations, certain industry. It gives tremendous leverage. And also, if you control the weather, which we included on in Why in the World Are They Spraying, you can literally control every food supply, every political system, and that's what's going on. We're seeing this huge consolidation of both monetary and political power.
Yeah, you can make money on the weather futures market. You can sell lots of crop insurance. There's huge monetary incentives for these programs.
It's insane. So yes, I mean it's. We initially said it was probably a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now, with the climate change agenda associated with this, this is a multi-trillion-dollar agenda. And with the climate change agenda, again, it is the largest planned transfer of both monetary and political power in the history of our planet. This is huge. And I'm not comparing it to the American Revolution, but it makes the American Revolution look very small. This is all countries, actually 196 or 195 or 196 countries coming together, giving up their national boundaries and allowing a new form of government, taxation, the ability to collect money, the ability to create mandates. And what's interesting, the Paris Climate Agreement did not, many people were expecting it to include various carbon reduction legally binding assertions in this agreement, which it did not. However, the Paris Agreement, without question, is legally binding. And what's critical here is it does. It is the creation of a new government body. And in the maturation of this, again, it is circumventing, or the plan is to circumvent national boundaries, state laws, forming what many are calling the New World Order. This is it. This is the structure to do this. And a lot of people are arguing, stating that this is not legally binding. There are gray areas, but yes, it is legally binding, but not in all agreements. I think I found out why. Because normally these types of agreements have to go through vote through the Senate and the Congress. And I was looking and talking with some attorneys about this. There are a couple of variables. And what has happened in literally 95% of the international agreements that the U.S. has signed on to, they have been signed on via executive order. So just 5% of these agreements required Senate and congressional approval. And there are a lot of gray areas in the law in terms of the powers that the president has. We know from what he has said and what the agenda has been, clearly demonstrated by this administration, that they are planning on moving forward, definitely supportive of these climate change objectives. So I think what we're going to see, without question, is the president sign this via executive order. And he has the ability to do this based on a couple of issues. One of the issues is if there has been laws passed that are similar to this, and there has been in terms of Kyoto, although that was not legally binding. Another thing that gives him more legal standing to do such a thing, if he doesn't get Senate or congressional support, is the fact that this is not, in terms of carbon reduction, there is no legal provision with carbon reduction. And that is why I think that this agreement does not contain that, because the U.S. is the big powerhouse here. The U.S. is the driving force for most economies and has a lot of also other interests related to this issue of climate change. And what I strongly feel that we're going to see, because again, this is a legally binding structure, I feel strongly that this will allow the structure to develop, and again, circumventing state laws and national boundaries, moving forward and creating the types of objectives that they're stating that they're moving forward with. So this is global governance, and it appears that this is incremental. So while we expected this new formation of global governance and boom, 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 all of these issues to be immediately implemented, they've been very clear. There's a 5-year planned implementation. So these are incremental steps that they're moving forward for, and I think it's very soon that we're going to be seeing legally binding carbon reduction. What does that mean for us? It means monitoring in the home. It means all kinds of capping issues. It means taxation. It means cutbacks. It means we might be limited to how many miles that we can drive. Everybody's going to have a reduction. And this is not a suggestion. These will be mandates. And I think a real possibility is now that the state of Washington state now has started a mileage tax. They're actually monitoring people with how many miles they drive. That technology is available, and in this 5-year implementation, I think that is what they are planning on doing. So let's say if you drive 200 miles a week or maybe 300 miles, you might have to cut that by 40%, maybe even 50%. So let's say if you work far away, you might have to get another job. You might have to change careers. You might have to take a bus. You might have to find some other way to get back to work. But we are on all levels going to have to cut back. Let's say you have a light on, typically past 9 p.m. You might have to cut that light off at 8:30 now. And if you turn it on, because they can now monitor us with smart meters and determine when we're using energy, what specific appliances we're going to use, a real good possibility is that you are going to have to put your lights out. Another thing, they can monitor, as I just said, the certain appliances that we're using. This is an entirely new green economy that will be run by corporations that are going to dictate what products we use. So a real possibility is, let's say if you, a couple of years ago, just bought a vacuum cleaner and you like it and you use it. Well, if you use it after these mandates are passed, and if it's not deemed green due to from this new government or from these new mandates, you could get fined $200 for using the wrong appliance in your home. They're going to mandate what products we use. And again, if it's not generated by this new green economy, then you're going to be in trouble. You're going to get fines. And these are all very strong possibilities in terms of what we're looking at. This is a dictatorship, and I want to be very clear. Some people in our movement have said, oh, they are not going to legalize geoengineering with COP21, and that is 100% correct. They are not talking about legalizing geoengineering at this conference, but I want to be very clear. They will, and they have created the framework to legalize it without our input or without our input of our legislators. And that, without question, is why it is critical that we have to get these tests and that we bring this into court. And again, the only way to stop this is to stop the climate change agenda, period.
Michael, can I just ask you a question about if you look online now, you can find all sorts of private corporations that are offering to seed clouds and whatnot. You consider that geoengineering as well? It's actually quite a business.
Those are forms of geoengineering. So we look at a good example would be Weather Modification Incorporated. So while they do very regional weather programs, which still I'm not in agreement with, but let's say if you're a ski resort, you need additional snow, which you might need if it were to get above freezing, which I'd love to talk about in terms of what the jet stream is doing. But yes, those are regional geoengineering programs. They're very small, and they're typically disclosed in terms of licensed by the government and really well regulated. They use silver iodide, which is not even close to as damaging as aluminum in other primary geoengineering programs. So there's quite a bit of, there are many programs that are ongoing, but still, let's say if you get a dramatic rainfall, when we get these droughts, when we get these rainfalls, the media is very quick to say it's due to climate change and CO2. And when we were at Paris for the climate agreement, Terry Lawden, who is one of the most notable activists over in Ireland, he asked, and we're going to include this in the film, he asked many of the scientists, based on X number of weather modification programs, he listed off a whole bunch of them. He said, how do you determine what weather events that you've been talking about is caused by these weather modification programs, and what is by natural variability or CO2? And none of the scientists could answer his question. They're very quick to point the weather anomalies that we've had, the droughts in certain areas, the floods in other areas, which are certainly consequences of geoengineering. They're very quick to point it towards CO2 because that fits in with this multi-trillion-dollar industry. But when you ask them about weather control, then how do you know they don't have answers for that? And it became very clear to those of us, and we were very clear at these meetings, asking them, what does it mean if these factors are left out of your models in terms of geoengineering? And all of them said, well, it means our models are inaccurate. And my question is, how do you go and initiate mandates, laws, transfers of money on flawed and faulty models? You can't. It's fraud. Capital F fraud. You can't do it. And that's the way that we're going to move forward. This whole thing is bogus. It's fraudulent. And again, I don't argue whether it's warming or cooling. Why? Because you can't determine that. You can't. You can't. Period.
Right, right. No, it's complete manipulation based upon certain needs. Last week I had Alana Freeland on. She said basically it's full spectrum dominance of the planet. They want to control everything.
And they are. And they are. And the way that they do this, of course, is through law. Well, one of the ways. So it's the Hegelian dialectic. Engineer the planet. So we get all of these crazy weather anomalies. That's the problem, which is climate change. I think we would all agree that's climate change, but it's engineered climate change. And then the reaction is, oh my God, look what CO2 is doing. It created the flood in the Midwest. It's creating the drought in California. Well, wait a minute. That's the reaction. People say, oh my God, we have to do something. We have to give up our liberties. We have to give up our money to you government officials, so that you can determine how we live, because you politicians have proven yourself to be so just, to be so ethical. Are you kidding me? But that's the belief system. We're talking about public officials that have been caught in scandal after scandal after scandal. Yet people think that they're the solution. So if we give them money, all of a sudden the planet's going to cool, or the climate change is going to go away, not realizing that this very system, I'm not saying the politicians are doing this, but it's manipulation. And the solution, again, is consolidation of monetary and political power into the hands of a few at the expense of all life on the planet. And that's how ridiculous this is. And don't for a second think that they are not geoengineering the planet to get this reaction. And what's interesting, they're saying, oh my God, the California drought, CO2 created this. CO2 created it, right? We've been watching the jet stream. I've spoken to a number of meteorologists. Without question, they are diverting the jet stream. And we had this polar vortex sitting off of California. And we just interviewed Ilana last week, which was a great interview for Unconventional Gray. And they have the ability through, and she asked me to be very precise in how I mention this. Normally we mention HARP, but there are many other technologies available. So it's not only HARP, but they have the ability through the aerosols to heat up that metal particulate. And so the metal particulate is a conductor, and they, through the ionospheric heating, they can heat that up. So it creates this bubble, right, outside of the Pacific. And when the jet stream comes in, it hits that bubble. Of course, it can't penetrate through, so it has to divert. And what's going on? It's diverting north into your area, into Canada. And it's not only bringing the moisture that should be hitting California, but also warmer air into the Alaska, into the northern regions. Of course, any stream that you divert wants to come back and correct itself for a natural variability. So it's coming down into the Midwest and into the East Coast, and it's bringing all of that cold weather with it. So as a result, I was in the Midwest for about a year and a half, where it was very cold and very rainy. And also the East Coast. I was on a radio interview, I think, in February. It was 47 degrees in Anchorage. The person who was interviewing me was in North Carolina. It was -2 degrees. This was a common pattern that we have been seeing for a long time. And what it's doing, it's droughting out California. And of course, the news is saying, look what CO2 is doing. So you have to support this climate change agenda so we can get things back on track. Well, how about stopping the geoengineering? How about stopping diverting the jet stream? You think that's a good idea? It would probably come back to normal if you weren't diverting it. And that's where the problem lies. But the solution is here in California. So we have this issue of drought, and I had an opportunity to go to the Delta. I spoke with farmers who have had land rights for literally generations of their family. And Jerry Brown, although there is not, according to the farmers, a water shortage issue, they're using the drought as an excuse for many things, but Agenda 21 objectives. So the state of emergency gives Jerry Brown the power to take land via eminent domain. But what we're seeing these water rights that the farmers have been on, the water is being diverted. And the smaller farmers who've had this water, again, for several generations, now it's being taken away. And it's given to the bigger ag companies. The corporate farmers are getting the water, the smaller guys are not. And of course, they go under. So they sell their land at pennies on the dollar. And what it does, it's what Rosa Corey, who we interviewed, it brings them into Agenda 21 communities, the stack them and pack them. And one of the objectives behind Agenda 21 is to get people off of their land and into cities. And of course, that supports the corporate agenda or the corporate system more. It doesn't allow people to be free and independent or get off of this what I would call the plantation, the corporate plantation, and live, with nature. It allows them to be controllable and, again, into these tight areas where they can be controlled, taxed, and really serve these corporate interests. And that's one of many things that we're seeing here in California. Also, water. Because of this drought, they have used an excuse to go ahead and essentially drive the price up of water. And what these global elites are doing under the guise of Agenda 21, they're making water the next oil. So when there's a shortage, they can raise the price. California consumers, those of us who live here in California, we're now on a 3-tier system. So if we use the amount of water that we were using previous to this drought, our rates go up. And if we use more, then our rates go up to a second and also a 3rd tier. So the water prices have gone through the roof. What's interesting, those of us who use water, can you guess what percentage of the water is used by the residents here in California? That was a trick question, Brian, but I was waiting for a response, but I'll answer the question. 15%.
I have no idea, Michael. Sorry.
How would you? I way overshot it. I thought like 50, 60%. 15% of California's water is used by residents. The rest is used by agriculture and corporate. So 85% of the users don't get taxed at all. It's us. It's the consumers. They're extracting money. They're extracting wealth from the very people who use the least amount of water. This is an issue that is about corporate, it's about money, it's about power. And if you have the leverage of the weather, you can create regional instabilities and consolidate an enormous amount of land, money, power, and really take control of all natural resources. That's what's going on largely, at least regionally here in California. And I think now what we're seeing is a different weather pattern. So we're seeing the jet stream now coming back to a more natural flow, or it appears to be dipping down into California. So what it's doing, it's pulling the cold air up in the Arctic and it's driving it down into California, into other areas. So I think we're going to start seeing, based on that pattern, if they, and as crazy as it sounds, this is being controlled by these corporate and these government interests. I think they are going to bring more moisture and colder weather here into California, at least from what it looks like. That appears to be the game plan.
Okay, well, interesting. So, Michael, let's just switch to your visit to Turkey. What I understand, I saw some video on one of the geoengineering sites about a princess from Saudi Arabia being interested in geoengineering. Were you instrumental in enlightening her?
Yes, we had a breakout session. So it was climate engineering risks and benefits. So she was part of the audience there. So there were 3 of us who actually were presenting. I had the opportunity to be the moderator. So Patrick Rohde and also Michael Fleming, as activists, gave really good presentations. And then we had people, of course, who were trying to sell geoengineering programs in terms of stating how good it was and how it could be effective in combating the supposed global warming. Well, we already covered that it was not, that it was creating the climate change. And really, illustrated the negative points about this, which there are many. And so, yeah, there were many people notable who were listening and who are interested in this. And it was a non-governmental agency who flew us out there, and they obviously had an interest in what we had to say. But it was for the first time. We're used to asking questions and essentially being thrown out of these meetings. Now we had the opportunity to get the microphone to present in a professional manner, and it was, it was incredible to hear. She was very concerned about it, and she expressed her knowledge, which was very deep in terms of the issue and what her concerns were. So when we get people like her and other notable people and humanitarians who are taking interest in that, it just shows that we're on the right track. And, our message has always been to make contact with as many people as possible, and especially people in key positions, and working with people in all areas, in all regions, is the way that we're going to move forward in getting these programs stopped. So we're very pleased to have the opportunity, at least I was, to have the opportunity to go to Turkey. Really met some incredible people at that conference, and some incredible humanitarians were there, and many are now taking interest in our issues. So it's just, we've been working hard for a very long time, and it's, at times it seems like like it's been an uphill battle, but I must say this is just, I'm very pleased in terms of the interest in Turkey and what we had, and I'm very excited about moving forward in the future.
Yeah, she actually said she saw a few of your movies too, so you're having a tremendous impact on the consciousness of the planet. I want you to know that. What you're doing is having a very positive effect, and this is, it's a lesson to all activists, is don't give up. Keep plugging away. Eventually, it may take 5-10 years to get the message out there, but eventually even people in places of power that are often insulated from the effects of these programs are going to start to notice things.
And they are. And bottom line, this issue affects all of us, whether you're the president of the United States or you're just a normal, or what people would consider, we're all obviously normal in our own realms, or if you're just somebody, an activist on the ground, this impacts all of us. And bottom line is, we have the ability to reach everybody. And as we are right now, and when we continue to do so, and moving forward with an effective game plan as well, waking people up is part of the equation, and it's, I would say, it's an extremely important part of what we do. However, there has to now, based on the circumstances that we're in, there has to be a game plan associated with that. And I think it's critical that we look at where our opposition is. We have this new government that has been formed at COP21 in Paris. And while it's not the structure which many people expected it to be, the game plan is to create that structure. And that structure will, if we allow it, legalize geoengineering without our input, without the input of our legislators. So we're in a legal and a legislative crisis. And we have to focus in those areas, because I feel strongly that those who are moving forward in the legal capacity, trying to, again, remove our ability to address this legally and legislatively, they want us only handing out flyers while they move forward with the structure of this legal structure. And if we only educate people, we're missing a big part of the picture, and we're losing our window of opportunity to take action. And that's why it's so critical. Unconventional Gray, it's unconventionalgray.com. This is the most important project that I have been involved with. And, I looked back, and yes, our films reached millions of people, and they woke a lot of people up. But I feel, in a sense, and I'm very humbled by this, I feel that we missed the boat on this, because the action plan wasn't developed. We didn't mobilize people. We didn't collaborate with people on how we should take the legal and legislative action. And looking back, I have that opportunity again, and I'm taking it. And I have a game plan, and I'm very confident that it will work. And we're moving forward with it. So we're doing our best to include the vital pieces of information that we included in the first two films, but then bringing it into an area of action. And I'm not talking any action. You know, there are a lot of actions that you can do. And if your house is on fire, you know, you can take action. You could throw gas on it. And what's that action going to do? It's going to exacerbate the problem.
So Michael, we're getting near the end of the interview, and I just want to get this question in because I think everyone's going to want to know. When do you expect to be in court? What's your timeline? This year? Next year? Probably next year.
As soon as possible. So what our objectives are, we're working on the framework now, both legally and legislatively. So we're working on this. Once we have the framework, we're going to utilize the film for a call to action. This is a call to action film, and that will have various specific objectives in how we can bring this to various regions around the world. And what we need to do is get a court injunction in one region. So I think we're going to focus, and we're going to come up with a game plan a little bit later in the week in terms of what area we're going to target in on. But the first area that what we absolutely need to do, again, is get positive test results for geoengineering with the aerosol collection project. And that will give us the leverage in court. So there's a lot going on, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, Michael, you're doing awesome work. I'm so happy that there's someone as motivated and determined as you out there. So keep it going, and keep us appraised on when you get into court. I'd love to get you back on when that happens.
Oh, I'd love to. I can't wait to tell you when we have success with this. Thank you so much, Brian. God bless you, and please continue your work.
Yeah, God bless you too, Michael. Okay, we'll be back soon with our second guest, folks, Roger Landry from the Liberty Beacon Project.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back to I'm Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter, and I just wanted to remind the listeners that freedomslips.com Revolution Radio is a listener-sponsored platform. We have, I believe, 90 different programs going now, all providing what I believe to be much more accurate information on how this planet is functioning, be it political, economic, ecological, whatever. So it's an incredibly important platform to support. I recommend that you get the archives. It's educational for you. It's $5 a month, and you can listen to any show from anywhere on the station at any time at your convenience. You can download them, the whole spiel. So I really think it's important that you put aside $5 a month to support this radio station. Now, the other thing I have to announce is that I'm going to try starting a new program this evening. It's going to be called I'm Nature Extended. It's going to be an opportunity for you to call in and discuss the topics that came on today, which geoengineering, and right now I've got an incredible guest, Roger Landry, coming on to discuss a movement called the Liberty Beacon Movement. I'm not sure if Roger can hang in there with us, but if not, I still want to talk about the topics that we put out there tonight. I'm asking people to send me a contact request at bporter5611 to get into the line of callers. I'll probably have 4 or 5 people on at once. Should be manageable. And again, it's going to go for 2 more hours. So it's my attempt to reach the listener, to create positive relationships with my listenership, and I think it's going to really be a cool addition to the show. So let's get to our next special guest. Roger Landry served 8 years in the nuclear submarine fleet. Then he worked for Raytheon. Of course, we all know that's a defense contractor, facilitating DoD contracts for an additional 20 years. He then held department head and project manager positions for several other companies before founding the Liberty Beacon Project in August of 2012. Short form TLB is a media project consisting of dozens of U.S. and global websites, a radio network, and a weekly TV show. TLB's mission is the eradication of programmed ignorance, both in the U.S. and globally. All right, Roger, are you with us?
I sure am, Brian. Thank you.
Wow, thanks for coming on I'm Nature. I know so much about your what you're doing. I'm on your email list. I recommend to everybody out there. This platform you've got going is, I believe, it's got some of the most accurate reporting on current events on the planet, ecological issues, political issues, you name it. I'm really impressed with the quality of your articles on your webpage. and your videos and everything you do.
Well, it's really nice to get that kind of feedback on occasion. Like the bio said, I founded this project in August of 2012, and since then, we have expanded across the globe in a very, very huge fashion as as a grassroots media project, whether it be written media, whether it be visual media, whether it be audio media. And again, it's all about eradicating programmed ignorance. But I really don't get much of a chance for feedback because I physically, actually work about 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. I haven't had a day off in almost 4 years.
Yeah, you sound like another Michael Murphy.
I just did a great show with Michael a couple of weeks ago. I like Michael's word. I like what he's doing. And I will always offer anybody like Michael a platform to get their word out. That's the mission of this project. So you're you're not gonna get any pushback from me at all if you compare me to Michael.
Well, I
Not
mean,
at all.
you went through some sort of a religious conversion or something. Here you are working for the what I quote the bad guys on the planet. I mean, the military-industrial complex. What led to this change in consciousness?
Oh God, if you, I was drag kicking and screaming. I spent 3 decades working right down inside of the military industrial complex, either in the military or working for a civilian organization, basically Raytheon Services Company, facilitating DoD contracts. As a matter of fact, I was the team leader of an emergency response team, whereby if any of our allies or I guess whether they were allies or not, whoever the government or the military industrial complex could sell weapon systems to, had a system that wasn't working anywhere on the planet, we were the last people that were called when nobody else could get it fixed or up and running, whether it was a submarine, an aircraft carrier, or a shore based system. So I spent almost 30 years as an emergency responder. So everything was on the go all the time. Everything was critical all the time. We didn't even get a call unless it was an emergency. So this is what I did my entire life. And I was a firm believer that everything that the U.S. military and the U.S. government did was absolutely 100% necessary and absolutely 100% right. Well, I was obviously, as you guessed by now, actually not the typical, the atypical neocon. And I was living in Texas at the time, and a friend came over to visit. And what I always had on was Fox News. Fox News was on 24/7 on my television. And he came walking in and he shook his head and he looked at me and he said, this is absolutely ridiculous. I've got to show you something. So for the next 12 hours, what he did was take me from one website to the next. And this was about a little over 5 years ago. From one website to the next, from one topic to the next, so on and so forth, and started to show me things that I considered to be tinfoil hat, that I considered to be crazy people territory, that things that you couldn't even force me to. But this was a guy I really trusted, I really liked, a great friend, one of the few people that could beat me on the pool table, so I had to respect him. That's the way my mind worked. And after 12 hours, I got so distraught, I kicked him out of my apartment. And for the next 2 weeks, and I was on a 3-week leave at that point, basically a vacation. For about 2 weeks, actually about 10 to 12 days, I locked myself up in my apartment, sat on my bed with my laptop, and just started digging. Not to prove what he had shown me was right, but to prove what he had shown me was wrong, to get my sanity back. Because when you are this as steadfast as I was in beliefs, and someone comes in and takes you down this rabbit hole, it either tears your entire foundation you've built your life on out from under you, or it raises you up in a very good fashion. I experienced both in that 10 to 12 day period, and I couldn't prove him wrong. And what I ended up by doing was going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And when I finally broke out of my shell and went back to the pub for the first time in almost 2 weeks and walked in, people looked at me who had known me for years, and the first thing they said was, "What's wrong, Roger? You have changed." And that's before I ever even opened my mouth. Now, whereas most people are tickled along or brought along at a very slow pace, or they wake up at a gradual pace, something that you can manage over a period of years. This all happened to me in less than 2 weeks. My life took a radical change, and about 6 months after that, I founded the Liberty Beacon Project.
When did you quit your job, or did you quit your job?
Oh, I wasn't working for the military industrial complex at that point in time. I was actually working for a very large hospital running one of their departments at that point. This was in Temple, Texas.
Oh, okay. So
I quit the military industrial complex I went into the Navy in 1971. I quit working for Raytheon in 2000. And started my own computer company. And then from there, I got a better offer from a large company. I went to work for them. I actually worked for a sheet metal company. After I sold my business, I went to work for a sheet metal company. I went to work for a large hospital. And basically, again, as a troubleshooter, I would go in. They would have problem departments or problem divisions, and I would go in basically to set things straight. And I was quite good at it. So when I decided to start the Liberty Beacon Project, I decided it wasn't going to be one website or one Facebook page or one anything, and that these issues are things that are suffered by humanity. Granted, what most people don't realize is that the United States is in the crosshairs of most of these tyrannies at a higher rate than any other nation on the planet. And when I try to tell people that, they immediately draw back and, oh, yeah, right. America is under the gun harder than any other nation, but I can prove that very easily, and I can prove that in a matter of minutes, not hours, days, or weeks. America is under the gun more than any other nation on the planet, with one exception, and that is active warfare. But that being said, we are being affected as much as any other nation. And if we're speaking economically, even more so than any other nation, because you must consider that over 53 cents of every dollar collected by the U.S. government is spent on military or military-related issues. So it has literally drained our coffers to the point where we're on the point of bankruptcy. And the biggest drain on our economy intentionally has been the same military-industrial complex and military that I had dedicated 3 decades of my life to, Brian. So as you can see, I've not only come 180 degrees out from where I started, but now I'm seeing that it never was good. It always has been evil, and evil to a very, very large extent, not only on the rest of the planet, but to this very nation itself.
Yeah, I mean, Lucifer is a good character to pull up here, because all this activity that you've got your 8 dogs that you quite clearly elaborate on in one of your videos. I mean,
yes,
they're all hidden behind good intentions.
Oh, yes.
And false platforms, false agendas. It's unbelievable how complex the issues are, and how what's the word I'm looking for? How well managed the information obfuscation is. It's just incredible.
Can I jump into that a little bit? Because I made a comment a few minutes ago about the United States being under the gun more than any other nation on the planet. I would not only like to prove that, but I would like to show you where all of this comes from, the exact same origin, the exact same root. All of this comes from the same root.
Yeah, if you want to go through the 8 dogs quickly for the listener, I'm all for it.
Well, basically, what the 8 dogs are is these are mechanisms of tyranny: perpetual warfare, economic tyranny, GMOs, vaccines, big pharmaceutical, electromagnetic bombardment. These are all the different tyrannies that are being perpetuated against humanity, and it is to basically bring humanity down to a more controllable level of population, because the planet is not overpopulated. Anybody who tells you that is basically hasn't done their homework. You can take the entire population of this planet, put it on a landmass the size of Australia, give every family a decent sized house with a decent sized yard to play in, leave the rest of the world totally unpopulated. So anybody who tells you the world is overpopulated, it's not. It's just severely mismanaged because there's so many people. The elitists cannot control us anymore. The biggest factor they're concerned about is losing control over humanity. They must always be in control. Now, why do I say America is the biggest, we're right in the center of the crosshairs for all of these big dogs of tyranny? Well, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that the United States is the most GMO'd nation on the planet. You've got 50-something nations out there that have either totally banned GMOs or have severely restricted GMOs or forced labeling. We can't even get labeling. As a matter of fact, there are federal laws going into effect that will prevent states from requiring labeling on food in their states. These are federal laws. So we not only can't get our food labeled, it's going to become illegal to try and make GMO companies label their food. Okay, so we are the biggest, the most GMO'd nation on the planet. We are the most vaccinated nation on the planet. We have the highest level of fluoridated water on the planet. We are the most drugged nation on the planet. We have the biggest economic slide of any nation in history occurring right now on the planet. And I could continue on. How can I prove this? When I was born 61 years ago, 3 generations ago, I was born into what was the healthiest and most vibrant society on the planet, with the lowest rate of disease, the lowest rate of infant mortality, the lowest rate of anything on the planet. Today, the United States suffers the highest level of cognitive dysfunction on the planet. What is that? Okay, that is Alzheimer's, that is dementia, that is ADHD, that is autism. The highest levels on the planet, the highest levels of elderly and infant cancers, soon to be the highest levels across the spectrum. We suffer the highest levels on the planet, the highest levels of autoimmune dysfunction, which is an entire myriad of diseases that attack the immune system on the planet, the highest levels of deadly food allergies on the planet, and I could go on and on. So basically what I'm showing you, Brian, is in 3 generations, we have gone from the healthiest, most vibrant, most economically sound nation on the planet to the biggest debtor nation on the planet and the sickest society this planet has ever seen. This is not a guess. This is an easily provable fact. If we're not in the crosshairs, who the hell is?
Well, I totally agree with you. And up here in Canada, believe me, we're not.
Oh no, you're number 2.
We're not doing much better, I'll tell you.
You're number 2.
We lie about almost everything up here. We have a lot more GMO than they'll ever want to admit. They say it's 10%. I think it's closer to what you're at, which is almost 70% of the food grown there.
We're over 85%.
Is it 80 now?
85% in this country.
Wow.
You guys are probably at about 30 to 50%. We're in excess of 80% right now.
Yeah. Yeah, my third guest on my show, I've been up almost a year now on Revolution Radio. John Apsley is an expert in natural health care, regenerative medicine, and radiological toxin management. He said that it's right on his one of the first paragraph in his book on radiological toxins. was that the Surgeon General of the United States did a study back in, I think it was early 90s. He concluded that only 1.5% of Americans were healthy.
I would tell you today, okay, if you take, we need to attack this in one more spot, then we can fit all the pieces together, okay? What most people don't understand is that a war has been declared on humanity. Again, 7 billion people are way too many for an elite caste to control. They need to bring the population down. This is a stated goal of Agenda 2030, is to reduce the global population to a sustainable level. This is stated by the United Nations. What most people don't understand is actually how far they wish to bring it down. Okay, now, if you stop to realize that the United States, being the center of all of these toxins, also suffers the fastest rising level of infertility. Last year alone, we had a birth deficit in this country of over 320,000 children as compared to what we normally have. Okay, so what we're looking at is a convergence of what's falling from the sky via geoengineering. You just had one of the best experts on the planet on your show talking to you about that. And I like Michael, and we've had some great conversations. So we're breathing in the aluminum. We're breathing in the other nanoparticles that are falling on us. That's toxifying our bodies. We're getting more vaccines with the aluminum, the mercury, the formaldehyde than any other country on the planet. That's toxifying our bodies. We're eating more GMOs and absorbing more glyphosate than any other nation on the planet. That's toxifying our bodies. We have the highest level of fluoridation on the planet. That's toxifying our bodies. We are the most drugged nation on the planet, toxifying our bodies. Now, let me get to the punchline here. When you put more than one toxin into any physiology, whether it's human, lab rat, it doesn't matter. They are not additive. In other words, 1 and 1 does not make 2. They're not cumulative. 1 and 1 does not make 2. When you mix things like aluminum and mercury together, the toxic effect on the body can be magnified as much as 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 times what these products or these individual units of poison can do on their own. We are breathing it. We're eating it. We're getting injected with it. We're drinking it. We're taking it in our medication. It's all culminating in a massive poisoning of the American society. We are the sickest society on this planet, bar none. And this, my friend, is in 3 generations. If you take that in the human clock, our presence on this planet, that isn't even a hiccup. That's not even the beat of a heart. That's not even the bat of an eyelash. This is not funny. This is serious.
You have Obamacare now. What are you worried about?
Obamacare is there specifically to make sure we don't get the care we need to push back against this.
Oh, I know. It's unbelievably regressive. The whole plan. It's there to break you economically and to really worsen the healthcare provisions. So,
yes,
no. So one of the things I really love about what you're doing, and I've talked to Ralph Ely almost every day. He's one of your.
He's one of our central staff members.
Yeah. We're really good buddies now, and I really appreciate knowing him. I'm hoping he'll come on later when I do my extended version of the program. But the thing about your program is that you're focused on solutions, which I am too on my program. I only interview people who are actually making a difference.
Absolutely. And you know what? I respect the hell out of you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because too much of alternative radio is doom and gloom. But I mean,
yes.
Every one of these problems has a solution, folks.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do.
But people, one of the reasons I think alternative radio is not as popular as it should be is because people, when I talk to people often, they think, oh God, I mean, I don't want to hear anymore. But I keep saying, no. I mean, this is just the beginning of the story, folks.
Yep.
Let's turn it around. A lot of the solutions are just to stop doing it. stop doing those things. And like geoengineering, stop doing it. It's that simple.
I agree with you up to a point. But again, what I discussed with you and the points I made with you are that literally there is no escape. You have to drink, you have to eat, you have to breathe. There are some medications you're going to have to take at certain points in your life. So you will be exposed to these things. If nothing else, you've got to breathe. Okay, geoengineering, you can't walk around with an ultrafiltration mask on your entire life. You just can't do it. And this stuff's falling from the sky just about everywhere on the planet nowadays. But again, the heaviest hit is the United States of America. So yeah, for the most part, I would tell you, yes, stop doing it. But we're getting hit from so many directions that getting away from it totally is physically impossible anymore. So what do? Yes, this is all based on solutions. One of the things that we're doing is we've just launched a project called the American Freedom and Unity Project, and within 3 months we're launching its sister project, which is the Global Freedom and Unity Project. What this you're talking about the 8 big dogs. What this project does is it goes out to educate not the masses, because we haven't got time. There's not enough time left to reach enough of the masses and educate them to reach a critical mass. But what do we have? We have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of groups, pages, websites all across this planet that have great leadership. And this leadership is trusted, or they wouldn't have the membership they do. So the American Freedom and Unity Project is set up to take all of the leadership of as many of these groups as we can and educate them that all of these things, the GMOs, the geoengineering, the vaccines, they're all coming from the same elitist caste. They're all being perpetrated from the same individuals with the same game plan in mind. And once we can connect the dots, then we can get the anti-vaccine people now joining up and marching arm in arm with the anti-GMO people, and the anti-GMO people marching arm in arm with the political tyranny people. The motto of this organization is, and I think you're going to like this, Brian, the motto is this, okay, a true leader can be distinguished by those he chooses to stand beside him, not behind him.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I think it's so true. I mean, we all have to take a leadership role in this. There's no room for followers.
No, there isn't. If you want to be a follower, then basically what you're acting to me is an anchor. You're slowing me down. If you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to step up to the plate, so we're not going after the millions of followers out there or the billions of followers. We are going after the leadership. And we are going to educate through television shows, which we have, radio shows, which we have globally, and articles and websites. We have websites across the planet. We will educate the leadership and have them take the word back to their organizations where they're already trusted and people already listen to what they have to say, and they're not going to have to convince their followers from the get-go that what they're saying is true, because they've already established that trust factor. So when they go back and say, hey, guess what? The same people that are forcing GMOs down our throat are the people that are forcing vaccines up into our arms and into our children's arms, and this leadership is already going to have the benefit of the trust of the organizations they have built over time. So it is the fast track to interconnectivity, connecting the dots on a national level, and then a couple months down the road on a global level.
Are you organizing a conference to try to bring together the
yes,
leaders of the 8, what you call the 8 dogs?
Yes. It's called the Eight Big Dogs of Tyranny. This will happen in mid 2016 in a city in central United States, and we will bring leadership from across the country, from across Canada, from across anywhere, anybody who wishes to come. We will have scientific presentations proving the interconnectivity between all of the Eight Big Dogs of Tyranny. Anybody who can't make it, it will be live streamed across the planet. The Liberty Beacon Project is in the process of funding this project at a level that will absolutely make your head spin. We will be able to do this on a global level by mid 2016, and we will not have to go to the corporations or form a 503c, because in this country, if you form a nonprofit, there are restrictions you must live by that the government sets down in order to maintain your nonprofit status. Screw the government. You're not putting restrictions on us. But by mid 2016, we will be able to fund all of this from grassroots projects we're putting together right now. We have five funding mechanisms that will go into effect starting January 1st, that by mid 2016 will be funding this project many millions of dollars a month income. Not one penny of this will be coming from corporatist anybody.
Do you care to elaborate on that, or is that?
I can elaborate in a shallow fashion because we don't want to give other people. We don't want other people to know what we're doing because they'll be able to jump the gun on us. But we have two inventors and three scientists working for this project, just like Ralph does. These are, as a matter of fact, Ralph brought one of the scientists into this project. And this is, I can even tell you who it is. It's James McCartney.
Well, and James is a buddy of mine.
Yes, and James has got a couple of inventions that we are going to be actually marketing in a huge global fashion come the first of the year. We have two other scientists who have other inventions they brought to the project, giving us exclusive rights to market globally. We have a couple of inventors, and this I can tell you about. We pulled the trigger on this first of the year. It's a product called ToxiScreen that allows you to test your body in the comfort of your own home without drawing any blood. It is more accurate than a blood test. You can perform this on your infant children while they're sleeping and never wake them up. It outperforms a blood test by a huge fashion, much more accurate. It's about depending on whether you go to a clinic or a doctor and what they find, it's a minimum of a 20th the cost of going to a doctor to have these tests run for toxins in your body. Could be as much as 100 times cheaper.
Is it a breast test? What's the vehicle for testing? What's the medium for testing?
It is again. We pulled the trigger on the first. You'll have all the facts then.
Okay, no problem. I don't want to ask if you're not comfortable answering the questions. That's cool. I'm just actually curious.
I don't mind. Okay, it is an oral test, but it's not a saliva test.
Okay,
but that's as far as I'll go with that. Okay,
sure.
If it's more accurate than a blood test, it can't be a saliva test. Okay. Saliva tests are not as accurate as blood tests. But this is more accurate than a blood test, but it is done via the oral cavity, the mouth. And I'll just leave it at that, okay?
Sure.
We have exclusive rights to market this in the United States and Canada and eventually globally. We already have a list of hundreds of websites that will be carrying the ad for this test kit, which is comparatively speaking, extremely cheap, extremely accurate, can be done in the convenience of your own home, and can test for just about anything like glyphosate, like mercury, like aluminum, like lead, and I can go on. Even more accurately than a blood test can. This will be the initial funding that's going to allow us to bring these other inventions in and market them globally. Plus, we have a website and a concept for a website I've been working on for 3 years. But the problem with this website is it's going to cost between $100,000 and $200,000 to put the website up. So the ToxyScreen product is going to fund the launching of this website. This website, I've had 3 experts who I did have sign a non-compete, non-disclose form prior to looking at it, have all told me within 6 months the website has the ability to be generating in excess of $1 million a month in revenue. And the sole purpose of this website is to generate revenue, but it will not be through corporate entities at all. It will be through the mom and pop on the street. And when I'll come back on your show when we're about to launch that site, and I'll tell you what, I'll let you be one of the first ones to tell the public exactly what this website's going to do. But it's going to be a head slapper. You're going to go, oh my God, are you kidding me? But let it be known, by the end of 2016, the Liberty Beacon Project will be staring mainstream media in the eyeball and saying the sandbox is no longer big enough for both of us to play in, and you need to leave. I never lie. If Ralph and you have talked about me, the one thing he's told you is I never lie, I never exaggerate, and I'm always willing to prove anything I say. As a matter of fact, my favorite saying is, I will never challenge you to prove me wrong. I dare you to prove me wrong. And I do.
You're certainly a confident person, and we need people like you in the movement to fix this planet. I mean, there's just too many people who are sitting around listening to the narrative, but not enough people who are out there actually trying to make things different. And I applaud you, man. You've got some balls.
I can't do it by myself. I have surrounded, since I started building this project in August 19th, which is my birthday on 2012, I have surrounded myself with so many people who are so much smarter than I am in so many different key areas to eventually reach a point of, we're at that point right now where we can actually launch this project the way it was intended to be. I don't have the intelligence factor of 90% of the people I brought into this project. My skills are the ability to research and see the big picture and how pieces fit. This is why I tell people I don't challenge you to prove me wrong. I dare you to prove me wrong, because I can't lose that way. First off, if you hear me say it, I've done the research, and a lot of research. I've written over 1,000 articles. I've done over 500 radio shows, and I don't know how many TV shows. I put that challenge out in every show I've ever done. I have only been proven wrong twice, and it wasn't that the information was wrong. It's that I didn't carry it far enough. I didn't bring it through to a proper fruition. But if I challenge you to prove me wrong, most of you are not going to even try. If I dare you to prove me wrong, you're going to try and prove this crazy old man wrong just because you want to prove him wrong. And you're going to dig, and you're going to dig, and you're going to dig. So if you come up with something I didn't know, and you come back to me and say, haha, what about this? We both won. If you come up to me and say, I tried like hell, but I couldn't prove you wrong, I'm going to say, but how much did you learn? So by me challenging you to prove me wrong, I accomplished nothing. By me daring you to prove me wrong, I make us both smarter. We both win every single time.
Well, I've got something that you might want to add to your list of dogs.
What's that?
It's Nuke Power, Fukushima.
Oh, no. I said electromagnetic and radiation. That's one of the big dogs.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just EMF.
No, that includes radiation as well.
Because I did an interview recently with a guy named Dana Durnford, who is a Canadian who lives on the West Coast.
Yes, very familiar. Yes.
I mean, it was devastating. I mean,
absolutely.
What's happened to the Pacific
Ocean? Look at the die-off. Look at the die-off in the Pacific Ocean. Almost 90% of all of the native life in that portion of the Pacific Ocean is gone. Or either that or it is so out of whack that it's not going to be around much longer.
Yeah, he's basically surmised that we've killed the largest ocean on the planet.
Yes,
Fukushima has.
yes. And it's not just Fukushima, although Fukushima, I would say, was the trigger. Okay. There are other things. The geoengineering, the massive geoengineering that is being done on the Pacific Ocean right off of the coast of California, because the California drought is man made. Okay. The massive amount of chemicals and aluminum and other stuff that's being sprayed into the air to cause a 3-year, 4-year drought in California, that is also killing the Pacific Ocean in that region. So you've got Fukushima, you've got geoengineering, you've got sonar trials, you've got toxins. Do you know that there is an island of plastic garbage about half the size of New Zealand sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where the ocean currents converge?
I sure do. I sure do. And you left one really important one out that most people aren't aware of, but the fact that there's 90,000 ships moving things from destitute places to richer places like
Yeah.
North America, dump
Yes.
sulfur dioxide by
Yes.
the ton every day. I mean, one problem up in Sudbury, which is a northern city in one stack was killing a whole huge area, a city called Sudbury, and it was actually my cousin who waged war against the company Inco at the time, and they improved the capacity of the stack to pull sulfur out of the stack. Plus, they put in a super stack, so the effluent went further, and so it was discharged in a way that it didn't kill everything in the town. Because I used to go there when I was a kid, and it was like in the end of August, all the trees were dying.
Yeah.
And but we've got 90,000 of these ships. The
Yep.
fuel that these things are running on is bulk oil. It's like tar sands.
Yep.
It's disgusting. Why are we building everything in other countries? This has got to change.
Well, do you know one of the inventions that James has come up with is well, most people don't understand it. I've lived in California twice before. Now I live in northern Montana. I'm 30 miles from the Canadian border in northern Montana. So we have these huge windmill farms in places, strategic places across the country, but you can really see them in California. And these huge windmills are only about 10 to 15% efficient. Okay. James McCartney has come up with a windmill that is, I believe it's like 90 to 95% efficient. With about 500 of these strategically placed across the United States, we could shut down every fossil fuel and nuclear power plant in this country and not lose one single watt of power. Every single fossil fuel, oil, coal, doesn't matter, natural gas, shut down every single fossil fuel and nuclear power plant and replace them with 500 hyper efficient windmills. Where do you think we're going to be getting the funding for the Liberty Beacon Project? We have people like James McCartney, people like Dr. David Lewis, people like Gene and Ed who invented ToxyScreen. These are people who are literally part of. These are the people I went searching for to bring into the Liberty Beacon Project. We will take all of the funds we're going to be generating from these products and these websites, and the website is going to outperform anything. All of these funds, and guess where these funds are going to go? When I tell you what our mandate is, you're not going to believe me. You're going to laugh. But I never lie, and I never exaggerate.
Well, I'm not. I'll be. If I laugh, it'll be with joy that you're doing so many good things for the planet.
All right, this is what the mandate is, okay? Regardless of how much we're making, we need to put 10% of everything we earn each month aside as a precautionary measure, okay? That's only good business. The next thing is we're building a professional television and radio network, stations, okay, physical stations, and a server farm so that we can protect all of our own data and put up. We'd like to have a website in every country on the planet by the end of 2017. Right now, we're running, I think, 36 websites globally. So we have to put so much aside for that. We do have to pay salaries because we need to have the best people in this project. But now we're talking maybe about 20% of the income each month to take care of these issues. Every penny above that at the end of every month has to be spent so we don't pay taxes on it. If we're bringing in $5 million a month, and 500,000 or $1 million of that has to go towards infrastructure projects, whatever, the other 4 million has to be spent by the end of the month so we don't pay taxes on it. How do we spend that? We spend that on funding projects that are being done by people like James McCartney, funding projects like CMSRI, which is funding totally independent vaccine research, totally independent of big pharmaceutical companies and the government, funding the companies like Cerulini, studies like Cerulini that absolutely prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that GMOs are giving us cancer and causing sterility. This was the intention of the Liberty Beacon Project from day one, to put ourselves in a position where we can provide the funding to the people who the corporatists and the governments would rather see rot in hell than fund.
Oh God, it's such a beautiful story. I'm so impressed with what you're doing. Are you going to have any projects where you're going to try to renaturalize all the industrial processes, like replace oil and gas with hemp and things like that, hemp products? Is that on your?
I would tell you that next year we will be growing anywhere from 25 to 40 acres of hemp in Colorado for commercial sale.
Beautiful, because I think next week I've got Eric Rice coming on. He's a great promoter of the reestablishment as hemp as a one of the vital aspects of every economy.
Oh God, yes.
It used to be half the medicine on the planet. It was a lot more effective. It's completely natural.
Yep.
Then the industrial off the. I mean.
Oh yeah.
Limits.
It is the most versatile plant in the history of this planet. And that's exactly why it was made illegal. Had nothing to do with the fact that it was a cousin of cannabis. Nothing to do with it at all. It is legal to grow it in Colorado. We will be applying for a license. We will be growing at least 25 acres, hopefully as much as 40. Right now, the sale value per acre of a dense crop of hemp is $10,000 per acre. So if we put in 40 acres, we're looking at $400,000 return. So that will also be going back into the project. But that portion of the project is to build. To go along with the crop we're going to be growing, we will be building an off-grid Earthship Solution style community.
Oh, wow. I love that idea. I've been promoting that too on my show a lot. Yeah.
I have been doing a massive amount of thinking for 3.5 years. And the more you talk to James and the more you talk to Ralph, the more you'll realize that everything I've just said on your show, they're pretty familiar with already.
Oh, yeah. No, James has been on my show about 6 or 7 times.
I discovered him through show with James.
Sorry?
I just did a TV show with James. James is also one of our senior staff members in the Liberty Beacon Project now.
Yeah, you couldn't pick a guy better than that. Do you know a guy named Dan Winter?
Oh, well, why does that name sound familiar? You've got to understand how many people I actually am supposed to know. Like, my Facebook wall has 10,000 people on it. Well, how many of those people do you think I really know?
I just discovered this incredible scientist last week. Another member of the team here at Revolution Radio. His name is Dr. True Ott. He's a naturopath. He has some great guests on. He brings on this guy named Dan Winter. Well, I mean, I'm trying to hook James up with him because he says he's figured out the substratum of everything in the universe. He's figured out an equation.
Yes.
And he's got this healing machine, this plasma generating healing machine. And he says that he can fix everything that's out of balance with this equation because everything is based upon a fractal multiplication, higher or lower of this equation.
Yes. No, I totally agree. I do.
It's on this guy. Yeah, I mean, you got to get him on your show. You got to talk to him. He's completely on board with fixing everything. He has a beautiful soul, I can tell. But he's incredibly brilliant. I mean, you listen to the guy, you got to, holy, slow down, slow down, slow down.
If you could send me a contact for this individual, I will have someone in the Liberty Beacon Project get a hold of him. I would love to talk to him. I would love to either do a radio show with him or a television show. I would love to have the Liberty Beacon Project support him if there's any way we could do that to enhance his ability to get this out to as many people as possible. Yeah. This is what we exist for, Brian.
Well, I know. I mean, I want to funnel people through you because you are the, from what I can see in my research over the last 4 years, what you're doing, you are doing the most progressive work of anyone I know on the planet. Your organization. It's unbelievable.
Well, you make me feel very, very good when you say things like that. In my eyes, I'm not doing enough quick enough. In my eyes, the Liberty Beacon Project needs to grow quicker, and it needs to grow bigger, and it will. And we have built this massive organization on $0 over the last 3.5 years. 36 global partner and proprietary websites, a radio network, a television show, contributors in 34 countries. We have built that on absolutely nothing in the last 3.5 years. Now we have all of the pieces in place to fund it in a very large fashion to take it to the next level. Once we take it to the next level and we pull the trigger January 1st, we're talking about in a couple of weeks, okay? We pull the trigger January 1st to start funding this network in a huge fashion. At that point, like I said, mainstream media, you need to move aside because we'll roll right over the damn top of you if you don't.
Oh, I mean, that's one of the key remedies. I mean, getting the message out to people about what's really happening in an accurate way, in a professional way. There are certain aspects of what the military does on this planet that are useful.
Yes,
but
agreed.
But unfortunately, you don't need bases in 175 different countries.
How did you know? You know how many people I tell that to, and they tell me I'm nuts. Do you know how many? I tell people, you know something? How many countries do you think we are committing hostilities in right now? And they go, well, let me see, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Pakistan. And I say, well, I got to tell you something. If you consider that you can either look at this overtly or covertly, I would tell you it's over 80 countries right now. We are committing illegal, immoral, or hostile actions in as we speak. The United States of America is doing this, and its NATO allies, but mostly the United States of America. When the hell did we become what we hated most?
Yeah, I know. You basically become the British Empire, but even more expansive, even more totalitarian. It's so sad.
We're bringing you democracy. We're going to bomb you back to the Stone Age, Libya. We're bringing you democracy. We're going to bomb you back to the Stone Age, Iraq. We're bringing you democracy. We're going to bomb you back to the Stone Age, Afghanistan and Syria. We're bringing you democracy. Democracy, my ass. Name me one of these countries. One. That we have invaded their sovereignty and bombed them back to the Stone Age or invaded them since World War II that has a better government as a result of this. Name me one.
No, it's all to promote your own corporate interests. We all know that.
25 to 30 million deaths as a result of United States and its Western allies since World War II.
It's purely demonic. And Canada's in on the.
Yes.
From day one, we're in on it. We're a big part of the military-industrial complex. I call Canada the girlfriend of the mafia boss to the south of us. We're not innocent. We're not pure in the least. And I get so sick and tired of people who are Canadians who think, "Oh, we're so different from the United States." It's a joke.
Can I tell you something? You might know. I don't know if you will. If you don't know,
let me just quickly ask you this question because we're going to get a break soon. Can you hang on for a bit in the next hour when I open my new show called I'm Nature Extended?
A couple more minutes.
That's cool, but I know you're always busy and got stuff on the go.
I just did a 2-hour live TV show as well.
Okay, well, that's okay.
But no, I will hang in, but it won't be for another hour. Maybe another 15 minutes, okay?
Okay. Well, whatever you feel like doing.
You're probably going to suck me into another half hour at least if I know myself.
Once you get rolling, man.